Hey everybody, welcome back to theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Again, it's theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Today I'm interviewing Mukhtar Ahmed. He's the president of Global eClinical Business at Bioclinica. Um, Mukhtar has an extensive history in the life sciences industry. He's worked at several CROs. He's worked at Metadata. He's actually one of the industry pioneers that brought cloud computing to clinical research. And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, Mukhtar, but as far as the whole EDC thing, when EDC was transferred over to from paper to electronic databases, you played a pivotal role in that process, right?
Yes, yes. I was involved in kind of the early days of EDC adoption, and that adoption took many years. And of course, today it's a given for clinical trials. But those 7, 8 years, moving from paper and conventional processes to electronic data capture and source data capture. Yes, indeed, I was involved in helping to certainly envision elements of that within the industry.
Yeah, and it seems like technology is constantly forcing change in industries and clinical research. Although we're often laggards in the industry, it affects us just the same. So right now we're seeing a shift from traditional monitoring to risk-based monitoring, and with that, a whole slew of new platforms and technologies are emerging. I'd like to first focus on investigator site payments because the majority of my audience are research clinics, research sites, or perhaps even potential investigators, physicians who are sitting on the fence right now as to whether it's worthwhile for them to get into research or maybe they shouldn't. So these kind of questions are, I feel they can be helpful to some of those sites out there and some of those potential investigators who might be interested in learning more about how the process works. So Bioclinica, who's playing a huge role in this whole risk-based monitoring thing, by the way. They just purchased converse. Is that correct? Can you explain that to us?
Yes, absolutely. We did indeed acquire a company called converse, who we deem as the pioneers and leaders in investigator payments and a broad set of financial lifecycle solutions for the industry. Extremely innovative and scalable software, but accompanying that are a number of services, and those services can be provided by pharmaceutical organizations, by CROs, and to an extent by payers and providers also from a more broader healthcare perspective. And really, if we look at the issue here, I mean the business problem, and the problem is that research communities and research teams, whether it's in academia or commercial research, the goal is to focus more on the science and to minimize the administration. But unfortunately, if we look at at the way trials are conducted, a fair amount of the site effort is involved in that administration. And compensation, of course, reimbursement is absolutely critical in order for research to be conducted. And those mechanics and processes do not necessarily flow well. And so invariably there are delays in payments, and that has a knock-on effect on resource availability, and it can have an impact on on the research and the progression of a trial. So the reason why we've invested in bringing kind of financial products and offerings to the market, and it's one that actually accompanies our e-clinical products, and allows us to provide a broader end-to-end offering for both, as I said, biopharmaceutical customers, those that are practitioners of research, as well as those that conduct and are recipients of the research. And what this platform provides is the ability to kind of plan, plan the payments, manage the budget, manage forecasts, apply predictability around, how those finances are applied, and then all the way through to actually making those payments, whether it's direct to investigator and site, or in some cases reimbursement to subject from a broader health.
Yeah.
And then these
Yeah.
things
Now,
all integrate. Yeah, sorry, go on.
oh yeah. So I was gonna ask, are these payments, because every protocol, as far as payments are concerned, is, from my experiences at least, is handled a little differently. So it's very difficult to find the trigger points for when payment is released. I mean, oftentimes, especially around the beginning of studies, even people at the CRO level seem to be a little bit confused by the process. So are you guys gonna implement something that is a universal trigger for payments? Like, as soon as data is entered, will payment be released, or are you waiting for monitor approval? Um, what is the process, if you can get into a little bit of that?
Yeah, I mean, the architecture is such that, our products, certainly, ClinPlan and ClinPay, they're based on an open architecture. And what that means is derivation of the business rules or the payment rules are such that, they can be derived within a CTMS system or from an EDC system. So therefore, the trigger can be really based upon any milestone, whether that's a transactional milestone or it's a time in motion milestone or otherwise. And so there's tremendous flexibility in building those business rules within kind of the source system, and then having our financial platform then obviously process that data such that the payments can then obviously be executed. And naturally, there's tight integration with our on-point CTMS system, with our Express EDC system, and Trident, which is our randomization and trial supply platform. So there's very tight integrations there from a workflow and execution standpoint. But what we also have is an open API such that we can integrate with pretty much any transactional clinical system.
I see. Yeah, and one of the hot topics at Scope, as you may know, was risk-based monitoring. So it seems like one of the benefits to sites for risk-based monitoring, there are many benefits, but one of the benefits would be that CRAs no longer are required to 100% source data verify. So at least in theory, this would mean perhaps quicker site payments, because we don't have to wait for the CRAs to review all the data in the EDC prior to sites receiving their payments. What other advantages, at least from the sponsor and CRO level, does risk-based monitoring provide the industry?
Well, I think it's risk-based monitoring. If we take off the monitoring piece, a lot of focus has been around obviously monitoring efficiencies. But if we focus on the risk element, because really that's what this is about. It's about reducing patient risk. It's about looking at obviously optimization of trials. So by employing a risk-based approach across the enterprise, it pretty much affects everything from product lifecycle management all the way through the phases of clinical research. Now, specifically in clinical trials, what it means is, better control over the clinical data. It's better control over the events that are embodied within a clinical trial, which are obviously reflected within the protocol and the way the trial is structured and the type of data that one collects. But with a risk-based tool that's managing all of these things, and with downstream integration such that all of the transactional systems can be automatically updated through tight integration, then naturally what's going to flow through that is the ability to then automate the way payments are made based upon hitting certain milestones or data points. So I think, the best way to look at this is as a complete kind of enterprise, kind of solution set or architecture when conducting clinical trials. I think the monitoring piece, of course, we all understand there's a lot of focus around kind of the monitoring element, but I think really, the key opportunity here is to apply different risk-based approaches towards the execution of the overall clinical program, and I think that is where there are lots of opportunities for us.
Okay, and as far as site metrics, because I know risk-based monitoring, especially when combined with big data, and you guys are involved in this space for sure. What are some of the site metrics that are now starting to be kept, as opposed to what was maybe not possible even just a few years ago?
Well, there's a number of different metrics now that we can collect and I won't say in real time, but near real time. Site satisfaction, for example. We can start, looking at site satisfaction, not downstream, but almost immediately upon engagement with the site, from the point of initiating the site, and, obviously going through the process of making sure that site is successful in recruiting patients and doing everything that they need to do. So as a continuous process, satisfaction, things around site behavior, right down to individual personnel, those things can certainly be managed from a data perspective. I think the second thing is around productivity, not just from a site perspective, but productivity across all those that are involved within a clinical trial, and that productivity may be measured in a number of different ways. It could be, the rate at which the data is captured. It could be efficiency measures. It could be site quality or data quality measures. So I think these, through a data approach, which is in essence what risk-based monitoring is about. It's about data and change management and process management. These are some of the things that we can gain as benefits by kind of taking a data approach or a big data approach.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And as we wrap up here, where would you see Bioclinica headed in the short term future? Since you've joined the organization, let's say within the next 2 years, what are some of the major initiatives you guys would like to see being brought forward?
Well, if we look at the industry, no one's actually provided our industry with the solutions platform that they require, and I don't think it's a one-stop shop solution for the industry. There's no one vendor that can provide that complete platform to the industry. So I think it's about interoperability. It's about having the right components that can fuse together to enable biopharmaceutical organizations, device organizations to conduct their research, and CROs for that matter as well. And I think where we're going is to very much provide that solutions platform. We have a number of eClinical products, CTMS, EDC. We have an open framework by which we can integrate with any product in the marketplace. We have an eHealth cloud that will continue to grow and serve both patient engagement and consumer applications, as well as those that fall within more regulated clinical research and post-approval. And then, through our investment in safety and regulatory platforms, and of course our financial platform, I think we're probably closest to providing the industry with that end-to-end solutions platform. And in the next 6, 12, 18 months, there will be continued investment in this so that we can give really the industry what it's been screaming out for many, many years, which is, an agile platform that really helps the clinical scientists to focus on the science. And, those that have business objectives, then we meet those financial and efficiency objectives also at the same time.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see where the industry is going to be headed in the next, definitely in the short term, but even more long term after that. So I wanted to wrap up with you do a good bit of advising to startups. I noticed from your Bioclinica biography, and you're also involved in private equity. And so I dabble in this a little bit as well myself, at least from the advising side with research sites and small companies across the country. So can you share a little bit about that as we wrap up here?
Yeah, probably the best example of that is the creation of our app exchange within Bioclinica, and this is very much a gateway for tremendous innovation, software innovation, whether that's cloud or mobile applications, and it's a way to get these into the world of clinical research, commercialization, readiness for research, and incubation to a large extent, and where it required investment as well. And that innovation can come from anywhere. It could come from academia. It could come from small startups. Very rarely does it come from the big vendors. It comes from different parts of the industry and other industries where there's tremendous software innovation and technology innovation at a pace which is far outweighs, and outpaces what we're doing in our industry. And there has to be a way of harnessing that innovation and leveraging that in life sciences, in the world of healthcare. So this app exchange is very much a gateway to do that, and it links in investors, it links in those that have great software and don't quite know how to bring it, to the world of healthcare and research. So that's just one example of something that we've put together, and it's a tremendous gateway for for application vendors. And I think we have 8 or 9 or so already signed up, from drug adherence all the way through to really innovative patient engagement applications, source data applications that we're now offering through Bioclinica and through the eHealth business.
Interesting. So Bioclinica serves as a sort of incubator for some startups if the technology seems interesting and maybe practical for the industry.
Yeah, very much so. It's a way where we can take that innovation and bring it into the world of research, and it's validated, it's hosted by us. There's full assurance in the operability, continuity of that software. It's fully supported. It's embedded and integrated either into the customer's landscape or as part of our landscape. And it's there for research communities to use. And it goes, back to our initial conversation. Research communities want to focus on the science. They don't want to be software vendors. They don't want to be bogged down by implementation. They don't want to be bogged down with barriers to conducting research and focusing on patient. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create ways so we can get to the science real quickly.
Well, I appreciate your time, Mukhtar Ahmed, and